we are live and that my microphone is working and that everything is ready to go. Okay, so please let me know if you can hear me. It says we're live, so I hope this is accurate, okay? So if you can hear me and I am live, will you please drop your name in the chat to let us know that everything is working? Oh, and it looks like it is. All right, everybody. The sun is shining a little bit today. We've had kind of on and off cloudy weather here in central Kentucky, and so today's a nice day. So if you can get out there and enjoy yourself this afternoon, do so. And so the first question that I asked everybody earlier was, if you have experience with bobbin work, you can go ahead and let us know that in the chat. But I am super excited to share bobbin work with you today. It's a form of embellishment that for some people may be kind of scary, and you can do it very easily with just about any kind of sewing machine. You don't have to have a fancy sewing machine. You can do it with a straight stitch vintage. You can do it with a treadle machine. You can literally do it with any type of sewing machine. All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. It is sunny and 72 where I'm at. I hope it's wonderful where you are. And let's go ahead and get started today. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what is bobbin work. So I'm just going to define bobbin work. So bobbin work is literally working from the back of the machine. Look at all these friends here. Working from the back of the machine and loading specialty thread into your bobbin. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So I hope you've downloaded the pattern that we're working with today. I'm going to be working on the house block, and I actually turned it into a spooky house. So I have turned my little gnome house into a spooky house, as you can see right there. And what you're going to need for this lesson is you're going to need a darning foot or an embroidery foot. I like to use an open toe. You guys see that? It's an open toe foot for my machine. I'm also going to be using a threader because I'm going to be using heavy duty pearl cotton. So pearl cotton is a nice thick thread that's often used for embroidery. I'm also going to be using my bobbin case, but in my bobbin case I'm going to, I have a little washer that I normally put in my bobbin case, and it's right here. And it's a silicone washer. It's called a bobbin genie. And that allows my bobbin to move freely inside there. So I always drop that in there whenever I'm going to do bobbin work. And then I'm going to take my bobbin and I'm winding by hand that extra thick pearl cotton. So I'm just going to wind it by hand. I'm going to put enough tension on there so that it's not loose. So you're just winding that by hand. You could wind it on your machine, but I just find that it's easier and faster, and I get more accurate results when I wind it by hand. And so I'm just going to wind a bobbin full of pearl cotton into my bobbin. And why am I winding it into the bobbin? Well, thread this thick will not go through your needle. No matter how big of a needle you get, you just can't really get it to not shred if you do it through your needle. So I have filled up my bobbin and I'm going to snip that off. And so these are the supplies that I need for today. I'm also going to need a needle. So I'm going to use an extra large needle because I need to be able to put that thick thread through a needle. And so I'm going to use a hand needle that's an embroidery needle, and I will have to use my glasses for this. And welcome everybody who just jumped in. I'm going to be getting, just so that you know what kind of needle I'm using, I am using an embroidery crewel needle, size 3-9, so can you guys see that? So it has great big giant eyes. And so those eyes are big enough for that thread to go through. So I can thread it easily through that giant needle. And I always fish it through there with one of these hooks. So one of these hooks can fit through there, or one of these. And so your needle should be able to fit this size thread. If you just poke it through there with a needle threader, you should be able to just thread it through there. So make sure that you have a threader, a needle with a big eye, and I'm using lots and lots and lots of pearl cotton. And you can buy it in the little spools, or you can buy it in the big spools, but pearl cotton usually comes in spools. You can also, if you want to do bobbin work with embroidery floss, you could also use embroidery floss, and you just use the 6 strands of embroidery floss. And you can also do this with yarn. So those are all the supplies that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be showing you how to do this process with my little spooky house. And we're going to get started. So those are the basic supplies. In addition to the basic supplies I just shared with you, you're also going to need a little bit of interfacing, because this is a type of embroidery. What you don't want is for your design to pucker. And so let me move my pattern out of the way. You simply want to take, you can use a wash away, they call it stabilizer. You can use a sew-in interfacing. You just want your interfacing to be bigger than the design you're working with. And so I'm working with this spooky house, so I'm just going to cut it slightly larger than the area I'm working with, and I'm going to interface the entire thing. And like I said, you can use wash away stabilizers, what they call it, or you can use regular sew-in interfacing, or you can use fusible. It doesn't really matter, as long as you have something on the back of your piece to stabilize it and keep it from puckering on you, okay? In this case, this is fusible. So I'm going to take my spooky house and I'm going to simply fuse it down. I use my wool mat, and then I have a Teflon sheet, and I lay my block inside there, and I will just take an extra hot iron. And I like these Teflon sheets because I can see what I'm ironing. I use them for applique a lot. And then I'm just going to fuse my block, and your iron just glides. So I'm just going to literally fuse it, starting from the top and going all the way to the bottom. This is a silicone pressing sheet. They sell them on Amazon. They're super cheap. I think I got 2 or 3 in a set for $12. I love them for quilting. Anytime, especially when I'm working with fusible, then you can flip it over. And I'm going to press it from the back. So I've already made this block, the spooky house, and I have stitched all the way around all of my house parts using my sewing machine. I've done a blanket stitch, as you can see. And now I'm going to be doing some bobbin work because I want to add to this particular block, I want to add the spider web in the corner. And so if you have the pattern set, one of the items that I gave you was a bonus bat. So these are all the parts. I have a spider. I'm going to hang the spider from my gnome's hat. But I gave you this item here, which is a bat and a spider web. So I'm going to be using this spider web. I already used the bat over here on my spooky house. But I'm going to use this spider web over here in the corner. So I want it to fit right there and kind of come this way and go towards the house. So in order to do that, and I want it to be three-dimensional because I'm going to actually put a button on there that looks like a spider. If I want it to be three-dimensional, I'm going to have to draw this on the back side because that's the first step. Somebody said, what weight is this pearl cotton? Let me look and see. So this pearl cotton says it's a size 8 pearl cotton, so it's pearl cotton 8, 10 grams is what it says on the bottom. So pop that out of there so I can show it to you. It says 10 grams pearl cotton 8 on the bottom. Okay. All right, so I want that spider web to hang out over here in the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to lay my spider web so that it fits in the corner of my design. And you might not be able to see that, but I can. If you cannot see that, then you can always just take a light box and trace it. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly mark, and you can do it with pencil or pen, and lightly mark where that spider web is going to grow. So for me, it's going to come out of the corner like this. It's going to come in from the corner and just kind of catch it. And then it's going to come towards the spooky house like this. And it's going to go through the bat wing right there. And then I want it to be attached to the house, so I'm actually going to grow that spider web longer than what the design has. And then I'm going to track this one off of the page, right? So I'm making a modification to my design to fit where I want to hang that spider web because the spider web needs to connect, right, to my parts. And then I'm just going to go like this. The spider web just has these little connectors, right? They don't have to be exact. You can freehand these, but I just kind of got the outline of my spider web, and now I'm going to give it these other little markings. And so there's my spider web. And so I have marked that on the back side of my fabric. So my fabric's been interfaced, and I have marked my design on the back side. And you can mark that with pencil or pen. It doesn't matter. You're never going to see that. Okay? So far, does anyone have any questions, right? So this is where we are. I've got the spooky house started. He's got a little plant there, and now my spider web is going to come in from the corner and grow this way. All right, so let me get this out of the way, and let me set up my sewing machine for bobbin work. So I showed you guys at the beginning. I put my pearl cotton in the bobbin, right? That nice big thick pearl cotton in the bobbin. And I'm going to adjust my sewing machine and get it ready. So I'm going to slide it over here. And I hope you can see. If not, I will move everything in my way. Oh, let's see. All right, can you guys see my machine from where you're at? Let me see. Let me move it back this way. How about there? I think you guys can see now, right? Let me angle it a little bit. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I have my sewing machine threaded with a Microtex. It's got a very sharp blade, and it's an 80-12, I'm sorry. So it's an 80-12 needle, and it's a Microtex, so it's very, very sharp. And let me show you what that looks like. Hang on. Here you go. Sorry about that. So my Microtex needles that I put in my machine are either, and I just use Schmetz, right? So it's either a Schmetz, can you guys see that? I either use a Schmetz Microtex or I use a metallic. So it's an 80-12 or an 80-12. That's a medium-sized needle, not really small, but those are the ones that I use for this particular process. Always start with a fresh needle, and then I put regular Auriful standard quilting weight cotton in the top needle. So just regular quilting cotton. And so now, let me see if I can pull this back so you guys can see more of it. There you go. Is that better? I think so. All right. So I'm going to attach my darning foot to this machine once I'm done threading. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it in the bobbin case, and I'm going to adjust the top tension, not the bottom tension. So this is going to filter through there like it normally does when you're sewing, right? You're just going to fill it through the little hole on your bobbin just like you would do normal stuff. And it's just a little bit big, but it should pull just like this. If you want to, you can use a separate bobbin case and use it only for bobbin work, okay? So let me show you what bobbin work traditionally looks like, okay? Because we've been saying the word bobbin work quite a bit, but I need to show you what bobbin work actually looks like when it is finished, right? So this is an example of bobbin work that somebody has taken their decorative machine stitching and they've used yarn. So you can see there's a variety of metallic threads and yarns and even ribbon. So this can be done with a machine that has decorative stitches. That's the first example. In the second example, somebody has taken just regular embroidery floss and they've used just the straight stitch function of their machine, or maybe the zigzag, and they've done decorative embroidery. And that's what you can do with bobbin work. That looks great on as an embellishment on denim, on blue jeans, on purses, wallets, applique pillows. So all of that decorative work that you want to do. The next example is using metallics. So this is that Ricky Tim's razzle thread that's like super, super metallic. It's very hard to get that through your regular embroidery needle, but it works great for bobbin work. And then the last example is something that you can do with your embroidery machine. So if you do regular line work, if you have a line work drawing with your embroidery machine, you can do the outline with your embroidery machine, and then you can come back in and you can fill that in with yarn. All right, friends, so let me go back to the two camera view. So here we go. Can you guys see me? Let me try to focus this a little bit better. There we go. It should have focused now. All right, so let's get started. I've got my pearl cotton in my bobbin, and I've got it in my bobbin case. My bobbin case has a washer, and now I'm going to stick that in my machine, and I'm going to bring that up. Make sure you clean any lint out of there. So I'm going to bring that up and pull it up like this, and then I'm going to pull it gently. So I've got pulled that up. I've got my needle threaded, and now I'm going to do a little bit of work. I'm going to take and I'm going to thread that here with my mouth. I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to flatten that out with my teeth, and I'm going to thread that through my needle. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to thread this tail of a bobbin that's sticking out through my needle, because I'm going to go to the starting point of my embroidery. So I'm going to pull that through there, and I've got my needle, my hand sewing needle, threaded and ready to go. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do for this process is I'm going to, let me slide over. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put my darning foot on. Also known as a free motion foot. Your owner's manual may call it different things. And I'm going to take and I'm going to pull this, and then I'm going to take and I'm going to put it at my starting point. Can you guys see that? Turn this light off. I'm going to come over here at the starting point of my project. So my project is going to go face down, And I'm going to come up from the front of the project to where I want to start my work, and I'm going to pierce it through. Because what I want is I want my bobbin thread and my upper thread to be on the same side. If you've ever done any free motion quilting, you always start with both of the threads on the same side of your work. So that's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to get rid of my needle. So I'm going to pull this, I'm going to align that in that spot, and I've got now both of my threads on one side, and I'm going to leave a fairly long tail, and I'm going to bring this down. Now my machine, and I'm going to start sewing right where, let me see if you guys can see that. Right where my line is, I'm going to start sewing. So I'm going to drop my needle down, I'm going to start with the needle down, and I'm going to drop that right there. Right on the line where I want to sew. And so once I have that where I want it, now I can start doing the rest of my work. So I'm going to start sewing. I have my needle down. My stitch length is a 2.5. And so then I just use a regular straight stitch, nothing else, and I start to sew. And let me see if I can bring my other camera over here so you guys can see it from another angle. Let me see if you can see that one right there. Can you see that? So I think I've got two camera angles for you guys to see. All right, so now I literally just start sewing carefully and slowly like this. Down that line until I get to a turning point, and then I'm going to stop. So I've literally just, I don't know if you can see that, I've literally just stitched from there on down, and then I stopped. And I'm going to pivot my piece without lifting my needle, and I'm going to come down the other side. So I'm just going to come down. Can you guys see what I'm doing? I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to move two cameras at one time. It's a challenge. Let me turn this light down. Okay, so now I'm going to come and I'm going to check my work really quick. And I like how that's looking. That's looking the way it's supposed to. I have an extra loop there at the beginning, which is fine because I'll be able to pull that tight and tuck it back in. And so now I'm going to go down the other side of my spider web. And so I'm going to turn this down to 2.0 because I want it to catch a little bit more frequently. And then I'm just going to go back down the other side. And so I'm literally just allowing this to go down the other side. And as you can see, it's literally catching my work like this. So it's creating a line. Can you guys see that? And you don't see the other thread, you literally just see the dark pearl cotton. Can you guys see that? You have to be careful not to go very fast, because if you go too fast or your stitch length is too wide, then you can miss catching some of your threads, and then your thread will be a little bit loose. But mine is just going to keep going, and I'm just going to go very slow. And let me see if I can move this camera the other way. So maybe if I put this camera over here. Can you guys see it if I put this camera over here on the back side? Maybe like that. And not run into it. And so what I'm trying to do is literally just come off of here. And so I'm just taking my hand and I'm guiding the fabric and I'm pushing it all the way over. And when you flip it over, what you should have is just a line of stitching that looks like this. So it's three-dimensional, and all it looks like is your embroidery floss, and then it's anchored very tightly, right? If you find that it's puckering a little bit on you, then you can reduce the stitch length or increase the stitch length depending on what you want. If you want it tighter, increase the stitch length to 2.0, but if you want it looser, you can make it a 3.0. I find that 2.5 is really, really good on my machine. Okay, and so I'm just going to check it to make sure that it's not puckering on me. I may want to loosen my tension just a little bit, but I can keep working and I can keep rotating this piece and putting it all the way around. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about what I've been showing you so far, right? I'm going to keep going just so you can see how I'm going to finish this. So I can come off of here, right? And I'm going to go back where I came from, right beside the stitching I just took. And I'm going to anchor a second piece. This is a great technique if you want to add things like corn stalks. Somebody asked me to give them corn stalks for the fall, so I did. I put a corn stalk in one of the comments. I will put it on the main page later on today when I get off of here. But I added corn stalks, and this would be a great thing to do if you have embellishments you want to add, like plants or corn stalks or stems to some of the leaves. This is a great way of doing that. And just like that, I'm going to want to press that to make sure it's good and flat. But I'm just taking my hands and I'm taking my time. And I'm using my machine to actually draw. Some people call this thread painting. It's a type of thread painting, but it's most oftenly called bobbin work. And so there you have it. You stop, and this is what you see on this side, and then this is what you have on the other side. So on the other side, you're starting to see where I've got these lines now. Bonnie, what pattern are you looking for? If you're looking for any of the Gnome patterns, you go to www.jellyrollclub.com, and all of the patterns are linked. If you look on the navigation menu, there's a page that says Gnome of the Month, and all of the patterns are linked by month. It'll say pattern set 1, pattern set 2, pattern set 3. And so I stop there. I'm going to come across and just check it to make sure it's flat the way I like it. And then I'm going to come across here. And I'm going to travel on my spider web. And I'm going to reach the spooky house. And so now I've done this part of the spider web, and I'm going to come down here and do this last segment really quick. And you don't have to follow the lines exactly. The lines are just there to help you. Spider webs are not perfect, so you can take some creative liberties with your spider web if you want to. And I always add my darning foot just to kind of help me, guide me. Some people feel more comfortable working with an embroidery hoop. If you want to use an embroidery hoop for this process, you can. I find that it gets in the way, so I don't use an embroidery hoop. And now I'm going to come down the other side, and I'm going to finish up the last little line that connects this spider web down here at the bottom. And take your time. This is not a race. And now I can come back and fill in all the other lines to my spider web. So I'm going to fill in all of these little lines, and I can come back where I came from. If you can see on the other side, you can see it. I'll cut it off here in a second and show you guys. But bobbin work is super fun and super easy. Practice on little coasters. So if you have old jeans and you want to just cut them up, you can practice this bobbin work by creating little coasters. Practice writing your name, trace little circles and flowers. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to flip it over to the side. I'm going to show you guys in a minute. I'm almost done with this part. And this is the artistic part of quilting. You can draw people's names on a quilt if you wanted to. You can add fancy decorative threads to a binding. You could even use this as your quilting on a quilt if you really wanted to. And so I'm going to go back up. Just kind of trace myself back to where I came from. The sound of bobbin work is kind of soothing. You do have to stop frequently though and check for lint in your machine, because this can be kind of a linty process. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to check my work, and I see one little spot where my spider web is not connected. And I'm going to come off of here now, and I'm going to leave my piece where I came, and I'm going to stop. And I'm going to open this up. I'm going to pull my needle, and I'm going to pull all the way out like this, because I want to give myself a long tail. And so I'm just going to pull that out and give myself a big long tail. And let me move this other camera where I was, and let me move my machine out of the way so I can finish showing you guys what I'm doing. So let me move this out of the way and show you what I've got. Okay, so now that I've got most of my spider web finished, I'm going to come back and do a little bit more detail work. Now I'm going to start looking at my image, right? So I need to press this, so I'm going to take my iron, and like I said, if you want to use an embroidery hoop, you can. Just a traditional hand embroidery hoop, you can. And I'm going to check to make sure. Sometimes if you get going too fast, like I was going a little bit fast, your edges of your bobbin work can get like little eyelashing. So you've got to just watch that. See, I was going kind of fast to show you guys, so I have a little bit of eyelashing in a few places, but where I turned right there, I had a little bit of eyelashing. But if you just slow down, you can see that most of this is fine. If you want to come back now over the top and press over the top of that, that is how you would create a very large spider web, and it's kind of three-dimensional. I like how it feels. So I may come back and go over it with a little bit more regular thread. And let's see, let me see some of my questions. Do you drop the feed dogs? No, I do not drop the feed dogs. But you can drop the feed dogs. So let me get another bobbin, and let me show you what I would do next. So I would pull this out, right? And let me show you what I would do next. So let me go get another bobbin or another spool of thread. So now that I've done most of this on the back, and you see how it left this nice thick embroidered line, I'm going to take and I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to finish this up. So this that's sticking up, I can now take my needle and push it towards the back and tie it off, right? So that you don't lose that thread. It doesn't come loose down the road. So that's why you need the great big needles. So you would just take that and you would thread it back or stitch over it, either way. I'm going to put regular quilting thread in my machine, and I'm going to drop the feed dogs this time, because when I do bobbin work I do not drop the feed dogs, but this time I will. And I'm going to come in here, let me see if you can see my machine, and I'm just going to take my regular thread and I'm going to pull it up from the bottom, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do some cleanup on top. So if you get that eyelashing, it's not a big deal. You can just take your regular needle and thread. I will drop my feed dogs, and then I will do traditional darning. So if you have a machine that's a straight stitch machine, they're great for darning. And you're just going to come in here and you're just going to darn, literally darn across all these areas. I'm going to take these areas where I have a little bit of eyelashing that's going to go on, and I want to anchor it, so I'm going to start at the top. And this just takes a lot of practice. So I'm filling those in, kind of like free motion quilting, and I'm just going to fill that in, and I'm going to thread sketch it just like that. So I'm going to fill that in right along the edges of that. And so now I have filled that in where I didn't like the way it eyelashed on me, and I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to fill that in some more, like the corners of my spider web. I'm just going to fill them in, and I'm going to finish up the detail work. And so I'm coming through here. I don't know if you can see that. I'm coming through here and I'm literally stitching right over where I stitched before, right? And move that over right there. So I'm stitching right over where I stitched before, and I'm coming down and I'm adding some more detail to my spider web, making it look a little bit spooky. After I've gone through and I've done my bobbin work. And so now I've got that nice thick spider web. I'm going to trace along my embroidered line, and I'm going to come across . And I'm going to connect it right over here where I missed one of those lines. And this is with my feed dogs down. And I finish that up. And so you can do it with bobbin thread like I did. You can do it free motion. You can actually embellish this any way you want, but take your time and play with this. This is a great way to add little spooky details to your blocks. If you want to do this to your other blocks, like I said, this is a great way to add other details in there. I'm just going through here and I'm making some of the lines thicker, making sure that they connected the way I want them to connect. You can actually even do bobbin work with a treadle machine. I have a 100-year-old treadle, and this work that I'm doing right here can even be done with a treadle. going to get to that point, and I'm going to put my thread. And I'm feeling pretty happy with my spider web in the corner. I just need to press it out. So as you guys can see, I've got that spooky little spider web. I can put a couple of buttons on here that look like spiders. And so this is how you do bobbin work to do embellishments. And yes, you do have to play with your tension in order to understand this. I'm going to press mine out completely. And I hope that you have learned a little bit about bobbin work. The best thing that you can do is start with some pieces of denim like this. I have old jeans that nobody was using anymore that had holes. You can cut them into squares. You can put a little bit of interfacing on the back. And you can practice by drawing something on here and then practice your thread work. If you draw on the back, you can put your bobbin, your fancy threads in your bobbin and sew from the back and make coasters. And so this is a great way to get started in just learning how to use the basic stitches on your machine to do fancy work. It says, can the parts be cut on the Brother Scan and Cut? I'm not sure. I've never used a Brother Scan and Cut, so I'm not sure if the parts can be cut that way. I just trace all of my parts on fusible interfacing or whatever. If you have a house like this, you can simply take your Sharpie and outline it out like this. These are watercolor drawings that I worked on. So if you wanted to just literally draw these with a Sharpie and lay your fusible web or whatever other method you're using right on top of there, once you draw those lines, you can see right through there and you can just trace. All right, everybody, I hope that you guys learned a couple of things about bobbin work. Yes, it is one of my favorite things to do. I think it looks lovely. And I think it's great for doing little details like on the pumpkin. I'm going to be using bobbin work for these lines. I'm going to be making little spider webs on my guy using that. And if you are interested in the corn stalk, because you want to add corn stalk to the gnome, I will post it on my Facebook page, which is Facebook at Jelly Roll Club. The website is www.jellyrollclub.com. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please do. We have a lot of things coming up. We're going to be making different row runners next year. There's a lot of stuff coming up. I'm going to be doing some Christmas ornaments. I'm going to be doing some Christmas stockings and lots of other things that you're going to like. I'm going to throw a few more bonus gnomes out there before we're done that I've been hand sketching, so I appreciate you coming. I appreciate everybody who subscribes and supports our channel, and I just want to thank you guys all for being here. I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, and I hope to see you guys very soon. Bye, everybody. Have a great afternoon, everybody. I'll see you later, okay?